Good evening and welcome to 2020. John Stossel is off. Tonight, a 2020 investigation uncovers stunning new information about one of this country's most infamous murders. College student Matthew Shepard was so badly beaten his own mother barely recognized him. But it was the motive for his murder that fueled a firestorm of reaction around the world. The killing was widely perceived as a hate crime because Matthew Shepard was gay. But is that why Matthew died? Over the next hour, you will hear a very different account from the killers themselves and from news sources who have come forward for the first time. It is a story that gripped the nation, but started in a place that is very remote. "50 miles west of Cheyenne, outside the small town of Laramie, in the high plains of Wyoming. A lonely place to die. On an October night 6 years ago, this is where the life drained out of 21-year-old Matthew Shepard. He'd been beaten so badly that the only parts of his face not drenched in blood were where his tears had washed it away. He was tied to this fence for 18 hours in near-freezing temperatures and was discovered barely alive by a cyclist who called for help. In turn, Matthew's parents got a call.
Right away, there's this panic of, oh my God, what's happened and what can I do and how soon can I get there?
When you saw Matt, what did he look like?
Massive bandages over his head and 18 stitched wounds across his face and his ear reattached to the side of his head, and you know, he was wearing braces, and his lips were they were a mess, and I wasn't even sure this was Matt.
The severity of the beating stunned local reporters like Jason Marsden at the Casper Star-Tribune.
We knew in the newsroom the day it happened, you know, this is going to be a huge story. This is going to attract international interest. Within 36 hours, you have satellite trucks parked all over the streets of Laramie and Casper, Wyoming.
What attracted all the attention was not just the brutality of the beating, but the sexual orientation of the victim.
A gay college student in Wyoming has been brutally beaten in what
some believe that Shepard may have been singled out because he was gay. Well,
it was boom. The media descended on Laramie like locusts. They were everywhere.
All with the story that this was a hate crime.
Absolutely.
And the story was a natural cliffhanger. As Matthew Shepard clung to life, vigils were held across the country.
I remember one of my fellow reporters saying to me, this kid's going to be the new poster child for gay rights. Matt Shepard, gay bashed, symbol of the oppression of the gay community.
5 days after the beating, the symbol was alive and well, but the boy behind it died. The death of this young man from Wyoming sparked reaction overseas and demonstrations across America.
I think a lot of gay people, when they first heard of that horrifying event, felt sort of punched in the stomach. I mean, it kind of encapsulated all our fears of being victimized.
And if the push for gay rights found new force, so did a corresponding backlash, unleashed at Matthew Shepard's funeral.
You're an evil man. You die in your sins, you're going to go to hell. You'll go to hell just like Matthew Shepard went to hell if he didn't repent before he died. You understand that?
When Matthew's father spoke that day, he was wearing a bulletproof vest under his suit.
His family and friends went more than ever to say their farewells to him in a peaceful, dignified, and loving manner.
The saddest part of this whole case was at Matthew's funeral, when these people refused to let Matthew Shepard be buried with dignity. I never saw people that could hate so much.
What happened in Laramie seemed to most of the world like a clear-cut case of tolerance versus hate, good versus evil. But there's a lot about this case that people didn't know or people didn't tell. There was an additional undercurrent in Laramie because Matthew Shepard was not killed by some faceless evil drifting in off the mountains, but by two local boys. Within days of the crime, 21-year-olds Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson were arrested and charged. Throughout their legal proceedings, neither ever testified in his own defense. And since their convictions, neither has talked to the press. Until now. The men convicted of murdering Matthew Shepard are incarcerated at a location prison authorities asked us not to disclose. Under their sentences, Russell Henderson will never know freedom for the rest of his life. Neither will Aaron McKinney. They admit to killing Matthew Shepard, but they and the man who prosecuted the case say the real story is not what it seemed.
Did you kill Matthew Shepard because he was gay?
Two young men are serving life in prison for the murder of Matthew Shepard. You will meet them now and hear their story in their own words for the first time. The killers say they agreed to be interviewed to set the record straight. According to one Western movie classic, there's a journalistic tradition in the Old West that said, in a choice between legend and fact, print the legend. It is the legend and not the complete facts that has been printed again and again about what happened in Laramie, Wyoming on the night of October 6, 1998, when three 21-year-old lives collided at the Fireside Lounge. Legend has it that Aaron McKinney, Russell Henderson, and Matthew Shepard lived in the same town, but different worlds. Matthew's father worked abroad, and even as a teenager, Matt traveled widely. Friends say he had an easy worldliness.
There's something about his personality. It's like a lot of levels, a lot of like personal and philosophical and emotional things that we could talk about. He was just nice, just really sociable, really personable. He was just a good kid.
He made many, many, many very good friends. He didn't understand how it could be so hard for people to get along. He just didn't understand that.
Matthew attended the University of Wyoming, which had become the major employer in a once bustling railroad town fallen on hard times. McKinney and Henderson, variously portrayed in press reports as rednecks and trailer trash, worked together at a roofing company. They had steady jobs, steady girlfriends, and classically troubled backgrounds. Russell Henderson was born to a teenage alcoholic and raised without a father. He saw his mother being beaten by a series of boyfriends, some of whom also assaulted Russell.
Russell was abused. His granddad would say to him, Russell, when something happens to you and you're getting misused, you call us and we'll come and get you.
He learned early on that speaking up only brought on more abuse. Things got so bad the court awarded custody to his grandparents. Through it all, he managed to become an Eagle Scout and was awarded his badge by Wyoming's governor.
We found this picture of you.
This was me with the governor.
What happened to that young man?
I don't know, he got lost along his path.
What do you think he could have become?
Someone that people respected. But unfortunately, that didn't happen.
And what do you think when you look at that picture?
I think of me, it's me as a smart kid, not a stupid adult.
McKinney's childhood, too, was less than picture perfect. His father, a long-haul trucker, was rarely around. He eventually divorced Aaron's mother, a nurse who died when Aaron was 16 as a result of a botched surgery.
It was devastating. Me and my mom were real close, so that was real tough.
McKinney received a malpractice settlement of nearly $100,000.
What did you do with the money?
I blew it.
On what?
Cars, drugs.
McKinney says by the time he was 18, he had a serious methamphetamine habit.
It grows on you pretty quick. It has a way of grabbing a hold of you.
Did you also sell it?
Uh-huh.
Around Laramie, McKinney was a popular fixture with the crystal meth crowd. It was a group known as tweakers and included Ryan Bopp.
Meth is what made the world go around in Laramie.
Ryan Bopp has left Laramie and the drug scene behind. 6 years ago, in what he calls another lifetime, he was a close friend of Aaron McKinney's.
Aaron with the meth was pretty much like all of us. He would run into a hookup, he would get a whole bunch of it, and he'd be able to help us all out, you know.
They were partying high and waking up low, a tough combination for new parents like Aaron and his girlfriend, Kristen Price.
Well, we need formula and we need diapers and we need these things and you have to pay this rent. And I think he was really torn because it is the desperation of getting your fix or taking care of your family.
In the days leading up to the attack on Matthew, how much was Aaron using drugs?
Every day. It was an everyday thing.
Aaron and I had been awake for about a week or so prior to this whole thing happening. We were on a hardcore bender that week.
It was in a sleepless haze of too many drugs and too little money that Aaron McKinney encountered Matthew Shepard at the Fireside Lounge. Matthew would arrive at the bar that night with troubles of his own. His mother says they all started 3 years earlier during a high school trip to Morocco.
He got beaten and raped, and then he went back to the hotel. They made a very serious effort to try to find the men who had done it. There was 3, I think.
But you have said that that really changed him in some ways, that experience.
It made him pull within himself. He became withdrawn, depression, panic attacks.
By his college years, close friends at the University of Wyoming say he was still deeply troubled.
I do have a glimpse in his life that a lot of people didn't.
Fellow student Tina Labrie could sense when he felt down and vulnerable, and agreed when Matt asked her to go with him to a gay bar 60 miles away in Fort Collins, Colorado. Matt said he would hire a limo.
This is the one we had most requested, which is the most expensive one. Here, let me get that for you. Go ahead.
Thank you.
There you go.
Tom O'Connor, known as Doc, ran a limousine service and drove them there and back.
Why did he have to go to Fort Collins to go to a gay bar? Weren't there bars that he could go to?
There's no gay bar in the state of Wyoming, never mind Laramie.
So at what point did you leave Fort Collins?
About 3:30 in the morning. Actually, when I brought him home, Matt was really upset.
Really?
Crying.
To Tina or to you?
Tina.
He seemed to be in a lot of pain, like emotional pain. He was really worried, a lot of worry. I kept getting the feeling there's something he wanted to tell me, but he didn't feel like he could.
Tina worried Matthew may have been suicidal. The next day, she says she left him drinking at Lovejoy's bar. Doc says Matthew called him from there.
And he said, "Can I buy you dinner?" That turned out to be approximately 3.5 to 4 hour conversation with him.
What did he tell you?
And he said, "Doc, I'm gonna be honest with you, and you're the first person to know this." And I said, "What?" He says, "I got HIV." And we talked an hour and a half about HIV. He wanted to commit suicide. He was saving his pills.
Few friends would have guessed that was the secret behind Matthew's growing anxiety. Some thought it might be his deepening involvement with illegal drugs.
He said, everywhere I move, it seems like I get sucked into the drug scene.
What kind of drugs?
He didn't specify. And he sounded really frustrated. He's like, everywhere I go, I get pulled back into it.
It was a scene pulsing with danger and desperation. The kind of world where to get just 1 gram of meth, Ryan Bopp was willing to give Aaron McKinney his prized possession.
I wanted more meth. You know, hey, I don't have any money, but I got this really nice gun. It was a .357 Magnum. It was like Dirty Harry used. It was big gun, big impressive looking gun, real heavy.
Armed with his new gun and bar hopping on an October night, McKinney and his friend Russ Henderson would enter the Fireside Lounge, where Matthew Shepard was sitting at the bar.
He said he was too drunk to go home, and then he asked me if I'd give him a ride. So I thought, yeah, sure, what the hell.
You may think you know what happened next, but you haven't heard the whole story. Stay with us. Matthew Shepard's killer, Aaron McKinney, says he set out that October night to rob a drug dealer of $10,000 worth of methamphetamine. His friend, Russell Henderson, thought if he could keep McKinney drinking, he'd forget the robbery plan. They went to one bar and then another, the Fireside Lounge. When McKinney and Henderson arrived, Matthew Shepard was sitting at the bar.
I asked him for a cigarette, and it was pretty much just casual conversation. He said he was too drunk to go home, and then he asked me if I'd give him a ride.
McKinney later told police Shepard wanted more than a ride. He wanted sex, and in return, he would give them drugs. McKinney saw a different opportunity.
Well, he was pretty well dressed. He had a wallet full of money.
So you agreed to give him a ride home because you wanted to rob him?
Yeah.
And that's it?
Yeah. Seemed like a good idea at the time.
I kind of put two and two together that we were gonna rob him.
McKinney, Henderson, and Shepard left the Fireside together and got into Aaron's pickup truck. All three got in the front seat and Henderson took the wheel. McKinney told him to head out past the Walmart at the edge of town.
You had told police that at some point Matthew reached over and grabbed your leg.
Yeah.
And what did you do when he grabbed your leg?
I hit him with a pistol. I had my arm behind the seat with it, like that. I was getting ready to do it, pull it on him anyways.
McKinney says he asked for and got Matthew's wallet.
How much money was in there?
$30.
Did you stop beating him?
No. I hit him probably 5 or 6 times altogether.
How badly was he hurt?
He was bleeding pretty good.
Did he say anything to you?
Yeah, he was still talking, mostly, don't hit me. Yeah, he's being real cooperative.
So if he was being cooperative and he gave you his wallet and all of his money, why did you continue to beat him?
Well, sometimes when you have that kind of rage going through you, there's no stopping it. I've attacked my best friends coming off of meth binges.
I was surprised, shocked, because I didn't expect it to go the way that it did. I mean, I guess I didn't know what to expect.
Russell Henderson kept driving as McKinney continued to beat Shepard. Then McKinney says he looked for a secluded spot to leave their victim and give them time to get away.
The fence stopped us. I decided it'd probably be a better idea to go ahead and tie him up while I was at it.
And so I went and got the rope out of the back seat of the truck.
And who tied him to the fence?
I did.
Did you ever once try and stop Aaron from hitting Matthew?
Yeah, I did. I told him I think he had enough. Didn't do any good, because it didn't help Matthew any.
What did Aaron do when you said that?
He kind of got mad at me, but...
In fact, Henderson later said McKinney struck him across the mouth with the gun. The boy who learned to keep quiet in the face of abuse says he retreated to the truck, leaving Shepard alone at the fence with Aaron McKinney.
And then when I'm leaving, he says he's going to tell on me. And I went back and hit him one more time. But I hit him real hard that time. In the truck, it wasn't so hard. The last time I hit him, I held the gun like a baseball bat. It had a really long barrel on it and a full swing. I never meant to kill him, but you get kind of a feeling in the pit of my stomach the last time I got him.
McKinney took Shepard's wallet and his shoes, got back in the truck and told Henderson to drive to town. He says the plan was to rob Shepard's apartment, but when they parked the truck, they encountered 2 young men police say were vandalizing cars. Hostile words led to a fight, and for the second time that night, McKinney went on the attack.
I came from around the truck. I hit that guy. I blindsided him, hit him baseball style again with the pistol, took him out.
Emiliano Morales was struck so hard his skull was fractured. Morales' friend retaliated, slamming McKinney in the head with a small bat. Everyone fled just before a police car happened on the scene. Sergeant Flint Waters gave chase and grabbed Russell Henderson.
When I turned him around, I saw that he had a pretty good cut on his face, and he had a lot of blood on him. I looked in the back of the truck, and laying in the back of the truck was a large frame revolver. The thing was huge, like an 8-inch barrel. It had blood all over it. There was some rope and a coat in the truck. There was, I believe there was a shoe sitting in the front. There was a credit card on the dash. Seeing that gun covered in blood, I assumed that there was a lot more going on than what we'd stumbled onto so far.
With that much evidence, the attack on Matthew Shepard was not a hard case to solve. McKinney and Henderson were charged with murder. The mystery in this story was not who done it, but why.
I know in the core of my heart it happened because he revealed he was gay. And it's chilling. They targeted him because he was gay.
Just hours after Matthew was discovered at the fence, and before anyone knew who had beaten him, Walt Bolden and Alex Trout, friends of Shepard, began spreading the word that Matthew may have been attacked because he was gay.
They were calling the county attorney's office, they were calling media and indicating Matthew Shepard is gay, and we don't want the fact that he is gay to go unnoticed.
What proof did they have that this was, in fact, a hate crime?
Well, I don't think the proof was there. If you're asking me the question, that was something that they had decided.
Helping fuel the gay hate crime theory were statements made to police and the media by Kristen Price, the mother of McKinney's child. She thought things would go easier for McKinney if his violent outburst was seen as a panic reaction to an unwanted gay sexual advance. On 2020, just days after the crime, she appeared in shadow, talking about McKinney's motives.
He said that a guy walked up to him and said that he was gay and wanted to get with Aaron and Russ. They just wanted to beat him up bad enough to teach him a lesson, not to come on to straight people.
But now, 6 years later and out of the shadows, Kristen says her initial statements were not true.
I would have said or done anything, at that point to get him out.
So when you told police that the reason Aaron attacked Matthew was because he was gay, because he made a pass at him, you were lying?
Yes. I knew that night it was all about getting money.
And drugs?
Mm-hmm. Money to get drugs, yep. I don't think it was a hate crime at all. I never did.
Former Laramie police detective Ben Fritzen was one of the lead investigators on the case.
Matthew Shepard's sexual preference or sexual orientation certainly wasn't the motive in the homicide. If it wasn't Shepard, they would have found another easy target. So what it came down to really is drugs and money and two punks that were out looking for it.
Did you kill Matthew Shepard because he was gay?
No, I did not.
So to all of America who thinks what happened that night in October of 1998 was a hate crime, an attack on a young man because he was gay, what would you say to people about what really happened?
Wow, that's a good question. I would say that it wasn't a hate crime. Just all I wanted to do was beat him up and rob him.
So the reason you attacked Matthew Shepard wasn't because he was gay. It was because you were strung out on drugs and frustrated.
Yeah, very.
And angry.
Yeah, all that stuff builds up on you. It don't take much to make you snap completely.
Why was the beating so bad if it was just a couple of guys desperate for a drug fix, trying to rob somebody? Why the savage, savage beating?
The methamphetamine just fuel at this point where there was no control. So it was a horrible, horrible murder, but it was a murder that was once again driven by drugs.
That's not unusual with methamphetamine. People truly lose control.
Dr. Richard Rawson at UCLA has been studying the link between methamphetamines and violence.
With methamphetamine, when you're under the influence or when you're in the first weeks after you've stopped using methamphetamine, the kinds of triggers that can set off an episode are completely unpredictable. It can be you say a word with the wrong inflection, you touch someone on the shoulder. It's completely unpredictable as to what will set somebody off.
If Aaron McKinney had not become involved with methamphetamine, Matthew Shepard would be alive today.
There are a lot of facts the mythology surrounding this case got wrong. If you think Matthew Shepard never met his killer before that night, you may have to think again.
Aaron McKinney and Matthew Shepard were not strangers. They knew each other. Everybody knew Matt Shepard was a partier, just like Aaron, just like the rest of us.
Central to the mythology around the murder of Matthew Shepard is the idea of two different worlds colliding, and anti-gay hatred exploding in a deadly meeting of strangers. But 2020's investigation suggests the main characters in this tragic drama didn't live in such different worlds. Laramie is the kind of place where people are likely to know each other. It is a small town with just a handful of bars. It would not be unusual for Matthew Shepard and Aaron McKinney to have crossed paths, but McKinney says they did not.
You're saying that you had never met Matthew Shepard before, even though it was a small town. You both hung out at a lot of the same bars.
Right.
You both had some of the same friends. You never, ever met him?
No.
What would you say if people said, in fact, you did know each other?
People have said that.
And?
I've never met him. I don't know why you would think so. Maybe they seen us somewhere in the same spot or something. I don't know.
The world where people say they'd seen them together was the one centered around meth, speed, crank. Aaron McKinney was a regular in that crowd, and some people say so was Matthew Shepard.
I had seen them at the same parties, you know, and I knew Aaron was selling, and, you know, him and Matt would go off to the side and they'd come back, and, you know, Matt would be doing some meth then.
The first time I seen Aaron McKinney and Matthew together would have been 2 months before school started in '98.
Jean, who asked us not to use her full name, was a bartender familiar with the local drug scene. She says she was friendly with Matthew Shepard, and when she heard about him being beaten, something clicked.
You know, ding ding, you know, it's either money or dope, yeah. He'd be the perfect target, especially because Aaron knew him.
As word spread about Matt being savagely beaten that night, other people who knew him also thought the drug scene might somehow be involved. Laramie Police Commander Dave O'Malley got a call from a friend of Shepard's suggesting just that.
Now, as I recall, he'd indicated that he thought Matt had used crank.
Having quickly caught Shepard's attackers, police had little reason to investigate the role drugs may have played that night. At the time, McKinney told police he hadn't used drugs for months.
I really don't think he was in a methamphetamine-induced rage when this happened. I don't buy it at all.
But Aaron does say, and Russell said as well, that Aaron had been strung out on meth for days, that he'd been taking a lot of it.
Yeah.
Is it possible that that's the case?
Could have happened.
There are experts on methamphetamines who say that being under the influence of that drug, especially chronic influence,
Certainly.
heavy use, can make you crazy.
Is that a defense to what you do?
I'm not saying it's a defense, it's an explanation, perhaps.
Sure. But I feel comfortable in my own heart that, that they did what they did to Matt because they were hatred towards him for being gay.
The reason he was targeted was not because he was gay. It's not because me and Aaron had anything against gays or any of that.
No, I have gay friends. I know other gay people. No, that kind of thing don't bother me so much.
One of McKinney's gay friends may have been Matthew Shepard, according to another woman who says she saw them together.
My first impression of Matthew Shepard was that he seemed like a really nice kid.
Elaine Baker says several weeks before the murder, she spent a night on the town in Doc O'Connor's limousine with a group that included both McKinney and Shepard.
In the back of the limo, there was me, Stephanie, Doc, Aaron, Matthew Shepard.
Doc O'Connor says Matthew Shepard was a friend close enough to share some of his secrets, like Matthew's worries about HIV. Doc was also close with Aaron McKinney, who in flush times partied in Doc's limos. And in fact, McKinney and his girlfriend lived for a while in an apartment on Doc's property.
They lived here almost a month.
Had you ever known Aaron to say anything anti-gay? Had you ever known him to be uncomfortable or rude toward people he suspected of being gay?
No.
Ever?
Ever. Never heard him say anything about gay people.
Had he been exposed to gay people?
Has he been exposed to gay people? Yeah, he's been exposed to a lot of gay people.
How so?
How so?
Mm-hmm.
I know of an instance where like he had a three-way, 2 guys and 1 gal, at a party, an all-nighter.
He was actually involved in having sex with both a man and a woman.
That's correct.
How do you know that?
Because he did it with me.
Because you were the guy.
That's right.
So.
Did it with my lady friend.
And he
same time.
Didn't seem uncomfortable?
No, absolutely not.
How did that happen?
Well, things happen when you're drinking and having fun.
Did you think that Aaron was bisexual?
No, I know he's bisexual. There ain't no doubt in my mind. He is bisexual.
Do you think Aaron is bisexual?
Now I do, yes.
Based on?
He was always into trying to talk me into having a three-way with one of his guy friends.
A couple different people have said that they had seen you engaged in some sort of sexual contact with other men. Has that ever happened in your life?
No.
You've never had any sexual contact with other men?
Nope.
Displaying a strong aversion to homosexual sex was a tactic McKinney used at his trial. His lawyers developed a so-called gay panic defense, claiming homosexual abuse McKinney suffered as a child triggered the violent attack on Shepard.
Whose idea was that?
A little mine, a little the lawyers.
And why did you think that would be an effective defense?
At the time, that seemed like that'd be the best way to prove that I didn't mean to kill him.
So you made up a story about going into a rage because he made a pass at you?
Yeah.
Betting a Wyoming court would be sympathetic to gay panic did not pay off. McKinney wound up with 2 life sentences, assuring he'll spend the rest of his life in prison. Ironically, McKinney's gay panic defense only further fueled the hate crime story. Outside the courthouse, Matthew Shepard's supporters, dressed as angels, quietly faced off against anti-gay protesters. Fearing the death penalty in such a high-profile case, Russ Henderson pled guilty to avoid it. Without a trial, a jury never got to hear answers to questions like this.
Did you ever touch Matthew Shepard? Did you ever lay a hand on him?
No.
Henderson admits tying Matthew to the fence, but says he never hit him.
Never struck him, never hit him, I never even pushed him, never even shook his hand.
Did you tell the police ever that you never touched Matthew, that you never hit him?
No.
Why not? Why wouldn't you say, I didn't beat him, I didn't hit him?
My attorney advised me to say it was better to say nothing.
Russell Henderson was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms, the same sentence given to Aaron McKinney.
It's real hard for me to talk to Russ, to see him in this situation, knowing that I'm the one that put him here.
For a long time I thought that his death wasn't my fault. And then as time has gone on, I got a better understanding to know that I could have prevented it, I could have stopped it, but I didn't. Matthew died because I didn't stop it. I'm sorry to the Shepard family. They've had the hardest of all this. I'm sorry to the nation because This affected a lot of people. And I wish every day I could change it or fix it.
Six years later, there is still a lot we don't know about the circumstances surrounding Matthew Shepard's murder. But the fact that this case may be more complex than it seemed at first does not make the pain less profound, nor the alarm it sounded less urgent. The death of Matthew Shepard has led to enormous changes in understanding and tolerance. Matthew's story has become immortalized in documentaries, television movies, and a play. Called the Laramie Project, it has become one of the most produced theater pieces in America. There was a small screen version on HBO.
You bound him to that fence in order that he might be more savagely beaten?
The Laramie Project is often used in schools as a lesson in the insidious workings of hate and prejudice. That the real events of the case may have had little to do with either should not blunt the basic message, says prominent gay advocate Andrew Sullivan.
The case for protecting gay people from violence is strong, overwhelming, regardless of the details of Matthew Shepard's murder, regardless of what we might find out about it, what its complexities were, what its human dimensions were.
Would it matter if it wasn't a hate crime, if it were something else like drugs or?
I'm just not buying into that. There were a lot of things going on that night, and hate was one of them. And they murdered my son, ultimately. Anything else we find out just doesn't change that fact. I no longer have him, and I miss him.
Today, Judy Shepard runs a foundation dedicated to promoting tolerance, changing attitudes, and assuring Matthew's legacy will be a positive one.
His legacy, I think, will be as a turning point when the country started to move in the right direction on these issues.
Sean Maloney is Judy Shepard's legal advisor.
I think for a whole generation of gays and lesbians, it represents a time when the country was forced to examine what happens in the daily lives of gays and lesbians in this country, and transgendered people too.
Attitudes about gay people in this state have changed an awful lot since then, for the better.
Jason Marsden, a Wyoming journalist at the time, was a friend of Matthew's and says he was personally inspired by the case.
It made me question why I had never come out publicly. So I decided that I would be honest about my homosexuality in the newspaper for all to see and take as they will.
In the aftermath of the Shepard case, other people close to it have made dramatic changes in their lives.
This whole thing opened up a different Dave O'Malley. Before this had happened, I was really quite homophobic.
Really?
Oh, God. I told all of the jokes, I used all of the terminology that is so gross to me today because I was ignorant.
I think that, Matthew Shepard has been a symbol for respect for other people, and if nothing else, that certainly is good for all of us to think about that.
Cal Rerucha, the man who prosecuted the Shepard case, says it helped fuel his current crusade against the drug he feels was at the center of it.
I think methamphetamine is the worst drug this country has ever seen. In certain places, even in Wyoming right now, you can attribute 70% of crimes to methamphetamine.
Matthew Shepard was a murder victim. But I don't see why we should be afraid of finding out everything we possibly can about what happened. And I don't think it does anybody any service to engage in mythology rather than in reality. But we don't have to turn him into something he wasn't, or turn an event into something it wasn't.
He was a young man with issues. He had problems. He was not a perfect child. He was not any different, any better, any worse than anybody else on this planet. He was just a young 21-year-old college student who happened to be gay. That's who Matt was.
Matthew Shepard's killer, Aaron McKinney, has waived his rights to appeal his conviction. However, his accomplice, Russ Henderson, says he hopes to file a federal appeal, claiming he was never fully advised of his rights. And that's our program for tonight. Thanks for joining us. I'm Elizabeth Vargas. John Stossel will be back with me next week. For all of us at 2020, enjoy the holiday weekend and good night.